Welcome to Escapees RV Club webinars. Tonight, we're going to be talking about downsizing for your RV living. And my name's Brandon Hatcher. This is Kerensa Durr. And we are two of the instructors in RVers Online University. That is a program put on by the club to help people learn to either go full-time in their RV or just learn more about the operation, safety, and maintenance of their RV.
All important, whether you're full-timing or part-timing or on the weekends.
Yes. So we're here to help you figure out a little bit about downsizing for RV living to help avoid the overwhelm, because for all the things you do in RV life, you don't really think about downsizing until it's time to get started, and it happens to be one of the most stressful parts of getting ready to go full-time in an RV or go long-time in an RV.
Yeah. So we've got about 7 tips for you here to talk about downsizing, and we're going to just start off with one that is really kind of the foundation for what you need to do, and that's preparing your mindset. So in this, part of it's just thinking about what you need to do. You might have like a few months before you really want to hit the road, or a year or 2 years, and at that point you just want to think about, keep your goals in mind of that RV, because you don't want to bring a bunch of stuff into your life that you're going to have to get rid of in a couple months.
Yeah, we had this very situation happen to ourselves, because we had about a year to 2 years before we were going to go full-timing, and in that year to 2 years you forget, and you get back into your old habits, and you start looking for fancy furniture for your house or apartment or whatever. And you have to stop and remind yourself that I'm about to get in an RV. Why am I buying more junk that I'm going to have to get rid of later, or figure out what to do, or buying something expensive now that I'm going to have to sell for cheap when I decide to go full time, and then I'm going to be all upset that I sold it for cheap. So yeah, that's something to definitely keep in mind. Also, as we're going through these tips, if you have any questions or comments, post them in Facebook in the chat, and we'll try to get to as many as we can while we're going through them.
Yeah, absolutely. Because we know it is a big topic, and it's something that can be very overwhelming when you start to think about it. And something else to think about is the space that you currently use, and the items that you currently use, because there's a lot of stuff that we have in our houses and our homes that we might not use on a regular basis. And with a limited amount of space in an RV, you have to think about if you are really going to use that item. And when you're talking about space, think about what you do in your daily life. You know, if you're going to work, or maybe you work from home right now, you might have your desk space that you're using, but then you're going to use the kitchen to make food. But maybe you go to the living room, you have a chair that you use to watch TV. That extra bedroom, do you use that at all? Do you need anything in there?
Yeah, I think this is extremely important, because we see this time and time again, that people come from a large American dream style home, and they go to an RV and they feel like they still need to bring everything with them, because they're still in this mindset of, I've got to live inside this thing, and it's got to have everything. So they end up buying the biggest possible thing they can with all the possible room for, well, let's have an extra bedroom just in case someone wants to stay with us once along our journeys. Or I need all my toys. I need my boat and my ATV and my motorcycles and all of this stuff. And all of that stuff starts to weigh you down, especially when you're the one that has to drag it down the road.
Like a kayak and a sailboat.
Yes, I have the sailboat in the bay, and I did carry full scuba gear.
You talked about were things that you'd have to drag behind you, but there are a lot of toys and extra things that you can pack into the RV.
Yeah, and something that a lot of people don't realize when they're getting started is RVs have a weight limit. And if you exceed that weight limit, you're putting stress on your vehicle, you're putting stress on your brakes, on your engine, your transmission, and you're illegal going down the road. So, a cop, if they found you and found out you were overweight, could stop you from driving. So, you really got to get all of this under control and think about, what do you really use? Yes, you've got a 2,500 square foot house, but you're not 2,500 square feet. You have a chair, you've got a desk, you like to cook in the kitchen, You need a place to sleep.
Sleep.
You
Yeah.
probably want a bathroom. Really narrow it down and really think about what do you really need.
That's really going to help you as you start the downsizing process and think about what to take. It will it will help to know what you're actually using. So that's a good place to start, is just in that preparation for it.
Yeah. And I want to interrupt you because I think Anna
Mm.
is and you are the same people.
Uh,
So she says clothes are her biggest issue. Trying to pack for both summer and winter, and also fall and spring, and Colorado mountains in the summer, and then we might go scuba diving in the Keys. We're gonna need wetsuits, and then if we're skiing, we need all our ski clothes. So, yeah, how do you handle that?
so clothes, that was a big issue for me. And it actually does relate to the next point, is prioritize. And one of the things we talk about is determining your lifestyle needs. And when we started this process, we were going into an office at first when we were talking about RVing, and I had a lot of office clothes and nice clothes that I needed to wear into that. And when I started thinking about downsizing them, it was kind of hard to think about getting rid of all of that because I really like a lot of my clothes. And I've been out here for quite a while now, and I can tell you, I never use my office clothes.
Yeah.
I think we even when everything's gotten more casual, and there were some meetings that we did fly to, and I had some nice things, but I didn't need them. So I because I had more time to go through the process too, I realized that I really wouldn't use it because I was working from home for a year before we hit the road. So I realized I didn't need that stuff. But there was also the idea that we didn't plan to be in a lot of winter weather. So we didn't pack a lot of sweaters and things like that. Now we do definitely keep coats because in Colorado and the desert and different places, it gets cool at night. There's not all the humidity, so I definitely wear a coat. But I don't have a ton of sweaters and things. I have a couple.
Yeah.
That you just have to be realistic with what you really are going to need. And space bags are your friends.
Yes, somebody actually commented, what about space bags? Yes, space bags are great because you
Oh, I
can,
didn't even see
yeah,
that,
you
but
can
yes.
smash all those big fluffy coats down small. For me, I trim things down a lot. You don't need a lot. Um, you're going to be casual most of the time, so you don't need a
Yes.
lot of fancy clothes. And if you're doing a lot of Zoom calls, we've all learned in the past year, you only need to look good from the waist up
Guess
where the
what
camera
we
is.
have on?
Yeah.
Our pants.
So, um,
Loungewear.
yeah, really, really try to pare it down as much as you can. And imagine you're going to be in all these new places. There's going to be new places to shop. So, if you need fancy clothes for an interview or flying off to, do a meeting or whatever, you can always make that part of the experience and go buy some new clothes.
And it can be hard to think about your plans and where you plan to go if you don't really know, if you haven't experienced this life. But for us, we have found that we are out west. We're in the desert a lot. We're in nature a lot.
Mhm.
We're hiking. We're boondocking a lot. That's not the cleanest environment. So I am not wearing, I still have dresses that I carry with me because if
Yeah.
we're in cities and we're going somewhere, sometimes I like to wear them, and I just have a few that I love, but I pared them down substantially. But for the most part, I wear casual things because I don't want dirt all over them.
Yeah.
And we wear a lot of flip flops.
Yes. Flip flops don't take up much space. Teresa commented that space bags only work with the vacuum. There are actually another type of space bags that you can roll up and you kind of roll the air out of them. You don't get them quite as flat as the vacuum kind, but you can really compress them down a lot.
Yeah.
And if you have clothes that don't wrinkle, you can do stuff sacks like they do for camping. So that you stuff everything in a sack and then you cinch it up tight with straps and it gets real small.
So as we're talking about this prioritizing, you really need to think about what are your must-haves and your life. because everyone is different. And so what is important to you may not be the same thing that's important to me. So you need to think about what it is that you're doing on a daily basis, what you want to do. Is your goal to go hiking everywhere? Make sure you take your hiking clothes and your poles, you know. Other people don't need that stuff. And again, like kitchen items. Some people love to bake and they are planning on baking everywhere they go and doing it all along the road. Other people don't need anything in their kitchen. They need a pot and that's it.
Yeah.
So you have to think about you and your life.
And when you're thinking about this, be really brutal with your needs versus your wants. Because people say, I need all of this. I need all my clothes and shoes, or I need my sailboat and my kayak. I don't. I want it. I want to have it with me. But things like outdoor gear, like kayaks and those sorts of things, you can usually rent those anywhere that's got good kayaking. There's somewhere to rent them. So if it's not something you're going to do all the time, don't think about carrying this thing around that's just going to sit on your rack.
Yeah.
It's going to get dirty. Every time you get it down, you have to clean the, cobwebs out of it. And, the same goes for bicycles. We carried bicycles for a long time. And
Yes.
every time
With
we
good
got,
intentions.
yeah,
Good intentions.
every time we got them down, we had to like get the rust off the chain and
Yes.
get the brake cables moving again and put air in the tires. And we realized that we weren't really using these things. They're just taking up space and
Yeah,
giving
for
us
us,
trouble.
it didn't make sense. We know other people who bike every day.
Yeah.
That's the difference. You have to really think about what you want. So our next one is chunk it. And that sounds weird.
Yes.
But
sounds like chuck it, which is my method of downsizing.
Yes.
Is just to chuck everything out the
I mean,
window.
you could go either way,
Yeah.
right?
I think
you can
Bill
chuck it or chunk it.
Bill Trinkle said his method is just to take it all and set it on fire.
Oh, and did
which, can work.
That's chuck it, basically.
But basically chunk it
And
into
this is
small
to help,
pieces.
yes, exactly. It's to help you avoid overwhelm. Because it can, when you're thinking about, I've got to downsize and go through my whole house, that sounds crazy. But as you said,
Yeah, if you just think about things one room at a time and just start small and think about, okay, I'm just going to work on this right now. I'm just going to get this little bit done, and then I'll have a little sense of accomplishment, and maybe I can use that motivation to keep going. But really try to break things down. It's really difficult. We've seen this a bunch. If you've been in a house for 25, 30, 50 years and you've got to downsize, you've got so many memories tied into that house. So we understand. It's a very difficult process. So start early and,
it's not just the physical, like, oh my gosh, I have to go through each room. It is emotional too, especially if you have been in that home for a long time and you've collected all these memories. So the best way is to really just pare it down and don't think about it as your whole house. Think about it as, I'm going to work on this closet, or I'm going to work in the bedroom today, and that's what I'm going through.
Yeah.
Because those little pieces, those little smaller ideas of where you're going to work, you can go through those, and that's a win. And all of those will snowball until you get your whole house done.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely hard to get started, but it's real easy to get finished because the RV's here and it's time to go.
And deadlines always work.
Speaking of the RV, keep that in mind when you're doing this. Even if you don't have the RV yet, you probably have an idea what you're looking for. You're either looking for a larger RV or a smaller RV or maybe a van or a trailer, and you have a general idea of the amount of space you have. So keep that in mind. Think about that space and where you're going to keep these things, and when you can't find places for them, think real hard about what you're going to do. Something's got to give. You got to get rid of something to get something else in there. On the flip side of that, RVs are pretty well designed from a storage point of view. So your house, yeah, you may have one chest in the corner that your clothes go in, but in the RV, like in our RV, we have a chest, we have 2 closets, we have all the space under the bed, and things we don't need a lot, like winter clothes. If it's summertime, if they're in a space bag, they can go down in a bay if we really need to. So.
Yeah, thankfully we don't carry that much. We do have put our coats underneath sometimes, and then we have like extra blankets under the bed that we do have a space bag for. But we have pared down and figured out, because just jumping back close, thinking about that for winter stuff, layering is your friend. That's what, like, we don't have the sweaters, just put on different layers.
Yeah, somebody commented that earlier.
Oh, yeah.
And yeah, layering's great. And especially, if you start trying to chase the nice weather, which is the dream of all of us, you'll end up in the desert in the wintertime at some point, or in Southern California in the wintertime. At night, it gets cold. Even though it's 70 during the day, you'll have a 30-degree temperature shift. And then in the
Yeah.
summertime, we like to go to Colorado and try to chase the cooler weather at higher elevations. And it's the exact same thing. It might be 80 during the day and 40 at night. So being able just to put on layers and peel off layers is a really nice thing. So find things that work together so you're not having a bunch of individual things and not a lot of bulky things.
Right. But as you were talking about imagining your space, or if you have your RV, you can actually go ahead and measure some of the spaces you have. Like if you know that your closet is half the size of your current closet, work with that. Just put your items in there. And even as you go through every day and wear your clothes, shift everything to one side. And then the items you wear and you know you want to keep and wear, you can put on that side. And you'll know that they should fit. It's kind of a little trick to kind of work it into your current space to understand how much space you have, or close off certain cabinets in the kitchen so you have about the same amount of space as you do in your RV.
Here's a really cool one. Jill from Yester Kitchen. She has a food history cooking YouTube channel, which I'm sure you're going to check out now. She needs her vintage cookbooks, her filming equipment, her set decor, her cooking and serving ware. How do you deal with must-haves that take up a lot of room?
Yeah, that's a hard one. It is, but that if that's your thing, you have this history, you have a YouTube channel, and so you need those. That's what you have to prioritize. So you have to think about what can you cut instead, and make sure you dedicate the space you need. I know like vintage cookbooks, you might be able to keep in a tub in a bay if they're easily accessible. You want to make sure they're in a tub to be protected. Otherwise, you want to have them inside just because you don't want anything to get to them, water or other stuff like that.
For things like set decor, backgrounds, I mean, this is just a flexible fabric thing. You could take a photo of your current set and have it printed large that you put behind you, and the camera doesn't really know if that's real stuff or a photo. As far as camera gear, think about your gear. Smaller and smaller gear is getting better and better. I mean, we have an extremely thin, small light panel that we use. It's actually on right now. You could have a couple of those that don't take up much space. A nice small camera. As far as having things to like plate with, I get it.
Few items
Yeah.
so that I could plate food and take photos of it and things like that.
But maybe part of the journey is going to local shops, local thrift shops, and finding plates and interesting pieces that you can use for that show or a series of shows, then donate them somewhere and then go somewhere else and find more. So you're not just building this gigantic library of things, you're swapping them out as you go. You're basically letting them hitchhike with you to the next stop.
Right. Exactly.
And yes, get a toy hauler, like they're saying. Get a gigantic RV. And we know people that do, and you could set up a beautiful space in an RV. But really think about what the camera can see and what you really need, and think about how you can swap things out and try to keep it down. I get it with the vintage books.
Yes, and they're going to be heavy, unfortunately.
And if you have someone that is stationary that can help you out, maybe you can ship them a stack of books and they can ship you a different stack of books. That way you can keep rotating through things, but you're not having to carry every single thing with you.
Right. And even before you go, if there's some that you could just scan or take photos of so that you have the recipes, you have what you need, then you can leave them with somebody or in a storage space or something like that. Maybe that will help cut down on the amount that you have to take, and then you can always switch them out. And again, if there's certain ones that you want to use but you don't really want to keep the book necessarily, after a while you can trade it out for a different one at a different stop. Because one of the things that we love to do too, and I'm sure you will, is find regional cooking. So maybe you'll find regional cooking books as you travel along.
And we like to go to antique stores because it's like going to a museum of the town. As you go through different parts of the country, the antiques are completely different because there's different people that were there at different times. So, you can find all kinds of cool stuff there.
Yeah.
So then the next step to actually start getting rid of stuff is just start figuring out how you're going to get rid of it. And one method that works really well is called the Ohio method, and that's OHIO, stands for only handle it once.
Right. So just like it says, you want to pick up an item. So you're going through your closet, let's say, and you pick up an item and you look at it and you say, okay, this is either a keep, a trash, or a giveaway. We
Nope.
don't make a maybe pile.
Yeah, notice there's no maybe piles in there.
No maybe piles, because everything will end up in that maybe pile, and then you'll just be doing it all over again. But you just want to move it to one of those piles. You don't want to put it in the maybe pile and then look at it again and decide again. Now, I will say that you can't just put it in there once and then walk away. That keep pile, you should go through it again. Because if you start early, which we're going to say you should do, in a year or a few months down the road, you may find that, you know what, I really don't need that. I thought I did, but I can get rid of it. So
And
you need to
Teresa's
go
right.
through
Your
that.
giveaway pile is also your sell pile.
Yes.
Give away in exchange for cash, or give it away, whatever suits your fancy.
Yes. Sell, give away, whatever you want
Yeah.
to do with it. But
yeah, you'll find at the beginning of your process, it's like, this cup is the most important cup in my whole life. I remember so much about it. By the
this
end
cup
of the
really is.
nah, it's just an escaper's cup. Nobody cares. But at the end of it, you're just like, who cares about this cup? And you want it gone. So that's why you got to go back to that keep pile, because at the beginning you're a little slow to get started, but once you get going and you get rolling and you see your piles and you see that keep pile growing and growing and growing, it gets real easy to come back and be, well, not real easy, but it gets easier to come back and be pretty brutal with it.
It gets easier because, again, you just don't have all that space. So maybe you're going to be really good and get that keep pile down to just a little bit of stuff, but it might still be too big to fit in your RV, and so you're going to have to get rid of more at some point.
Yeah.
But if you can just pick up an item and just decide where it goes, that's going to be the easiest way for you to get through it.
Yeah. And for that giveaway / sell pile, there's lots of great easy ways to sell things now. Facebook Marketplace is super easy. I'm on there every day looking for things to buy, which is not the right way to go. But it's an easy way to sell things quickly and simply. There's always Craigslist if you're not on Facebook, or if you're selling higher dollar items. eBay if they're collectible. For clothing, Poshmark is kind of cool. It's Poshmark, where it's mainly clothing. You can sell other things, but people look for clothing there. But you can usually get a little bit better money there on clothing. And then you've got your humane societies, your church thrift stores, your local thrift stores and Goodwills for giveaways. So there's lots of ways to get rid of this stuff.
And there's also yard sales. You can always have a yard sale. If you do have some of the collectible items, sometimes eBay is better for that. If you want the price, if you just want to get rid of it, yard sale. And an estate sale.
An estate sale. That's actually what we did. We ended up having an estate sale. They're going to promise you how much. They're not going to promise you, but they're going to tell you how much money you're going to get. You're probably going to get about half of what they say. But what's great is they come in, they price every single thing, and then you leave and they sell it. And then at the end of the day, you get cash in your hand. And so it's, if you have a lot of sentimental stuff, you may not get what you want for it. But if you're just trying to get rid of stuff and want to make some cash, but don't want to do all the labor, estate sales work out pretty well.
And an estate sale could be a sale where people are walking through, or it could be an auction like Bill mentions. And he's right. With that, you do need a little bit of time to do that. So if you're very more of an impulsive person, you're saying, I'm going to go full time, I want to get rid of everything, and I'm going in a month, you might need a little bit more time to do it. But it's a lot more hands-off. But you do need to decide what you're keeping and what you're getting rid of.
Yeah. But with an estate sale or even an auction, you can have a minimum price you're willing to sell something for. So like we had pretty much everything we let them price, but then I had some scuba tanks that I knew they were worth money. So I put a fixed price on them. And if they sold at the sale, great. If not, I would go sell them on eBay. But yeah, it's a really nice way to do it. And then there's also the dump. You can just take everything to the dump and just be done with it, or set it on fire, as long as you don't have a burn ban and it's not too toxic.
Moving on from that.
Right, Bill?
So let's talk about memories versus keepsakes. Because as Brandon mentioned, we can attach a lot of emotion to items.
It's like this
This
cup is
cup,
so important to me.
right? So we can attach a lot of emotion to items, but sometimes it's not the item itself that's really important, it's the memory that it evokes. So when we're looking at items, we need to think about, is it this item that I really want to keep or just the memory? And is a photograph good enough? Because I look at a photograph of me winning an award or winning this cup or whatever it is, and that actually brings back the memories, and I don't actually need to keep the cup.
Right. Like when you look at a photo of your first car, you remember all the fun you had in the first car and how crazy you were because you just got your license and you were driving it around and maybe you had a cool car and it was something you feel like you don't have to drag that car around with you for the rest of your life. You can just look at the photo and get the memory. So what we're saying here is if something is difficult to get disconnected from, think about why. I mean, there are things that are passed down through your family that you don't want to get rid of because you want to be able to pass it on and it was part of, it's part of your history. But sometimes a thing is just a thing and it's the memories we place on it that get us all confused as to how to get rid of this thing. So yeah, take your phone and just take pictures of everything and then put them in a file somewhere and go scan through them or print them out in a little book so you can flip through them one day and just reminisce
Yeah.
about all the fun you had.
Yeah, sometimes it's the picture of just the object, and sometimes you might already have photos of it actually being used or when someone gave it to you. And so that's even going to mean more than just a photo of it. The other thing is you just need to give yourself time to process those
Mm-hmm.
items sometimes. Like if you do have a year and you start off the year planning to get in the RV, you can look at that item at the beginning of the year and it's like, I cannot part with this. But if you give yourself time, pull it out, let yourself look at it and actually have it for that year. And then maybe at the end, you are ready and you don't need it and you just want a photo of it. And at times, there can be items that you do want to keep or you still need more time to process. And that's when we get into storage units.
Yeah, there is no shame in having a storage unit. Uh, RVing can sometimes feel like a competition to downsize or get the biggest one or the smallest one. Nobody cares what you're doing. Do what you want to do. If you don't want to get rid of this thing yet and you want to hold on to it, then hold on to it. And then give yourself time. Go out on the road, have new memories, new adventures, and get some distance from those things. And when you come back in a year, you may find that what you thought was important at the time when you were a house person is not so important now that you're an RVer. And it becomes a lot easier to get rid of that stuff. I mean, we've seen a lot of people. It's very common for people to have a storage unit and then come back in about a year and just clear the whole thing out because they thought they needed the stuff, or maybe they're not sure RVing's for them, and that's very common. You go out, you RV, you do it for a year, decide you don't want to do that anymore, you find a new place you like, you want to live there, and you want your stuff. So you don't want to sell all your furniture and then have to rebuy it all if you decide in a year or two this isn't for you. But the flip side of that is, don't pay for things just because you don't want to take the time to get rid of them.
Right. It's worth it to walk it through because even if you're going to keep some items, maybe you don't have to purchase as big of a unit. You need to think about, is it replaceable and easily replaceable? An IKEA table, do you need to pay to store an IKEA table for months, years down the road? Whereas maybe you do want to pay for a family heirloom. Something like that makes sense. So you only want to pay for items that you really plan to use in the future and that make sense financially.
And again, check with your family. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
maybe they've got attic space or garage space or somewhere you can put stuff so that you don't have to, pay a storage unit to do this.
Or if it's something that they could use themselves, maybe it's better to give it a new home, or maybe they will want to use it temporarily.
Mm-hmm.
My mom has a painting by my friend, which is huge. There's no way it would fit in the RV, but she had a perfect space for it. So now my nephew gets to enjoy it when he comes over and he sees it and is inspired by it. And we see it when we visit.
Yep. And then Also, if you're going to put valuable items in storage, make sure you've got climate controlled storage. Make sure it's nowhere that's going to flood, because we had a little pop-up camper that we kept in a storage lot. And it never flooded. They told us it never flooded, and it flooded. And
Of course, during Superstorm
yeah,
Sandy, so it was a pretty crazy
but yeah, definitely
experience.
make sure you have climate controlled.
But yes, if you have papers or antiques that you want to protect, that's
Yeah,
important.
definitely. So yeah, bottom line is, if you need a storage unit, get a storage unit. Don't feel bad about having a storage unit. RVing's not a competition. Nobody cares. And then, you know, you'll come back to it in a year and clear it out just like everyone else does.
I did see there was a comment from, oh, I can't find it now. Someone who has been RVing for 15 years.
Kay
Oh,
McDonald.
Kay
Yeah.
McDonald, yes. 70 years old, still downsizing, full-timing for 15 years. It never stops.
Yeah, you know what? I don't think we have this on the list of things to talk about, but yes, once you get in your RV, you're going to continue downsizing. You're going to take a whole bunch of stuff at the beginning that you think you need. 6 months later, you're going to be tripping over that stuff, realizing I don't need all this junk. And then when you're out, you're going to find things you want, and you want to put them in your RV. So one of the things a lot of RVers like to do is the one in, one out idea. So if you bring something in, you throw something out or sell it or move it out somehow. And this doesn't mean bring in, a 400-pound kayak and then take out a 3-pound pot. You really got to try to keep that even, because you don't want to overload your RV. But it's a constant process.
We do
And
spring cleaning just like everybody else,
yeah,
where you kind of got to go through, especially your first year on the road. I will say that's when you need to really reevaluate what you brought and realize that, yeah, I put that stuff in that van. I never looked at it again. Do I really need it? Yeah,
a
it's
lot
a
of
process.
a lot of times at events like escapees rallies, escapers convergences, they'll end up being a giant free table where everybody just brings out all the stuff they don't want and they put it on the table, and people pick and trade and find other things they feel like they want now. And then if it doesn't get taken, then somebody usually takes it to a thrift store at the end, or you got to take it back. But
I did see Jill from Yester Kitchen also mentioned that they do have a toy hauler. Someone had suggested, and they're selling that, getting a Mountain Air. But there's still room issues. She's so relieved to know that she's not alone, and you are not alone.
Yeah.
Everybody goes through this and has to figure out what they really need, and that a lot of people have too much stuff to fit in the RV and try to take too much stuff at first. Like I said, you end up having to reevaluate a few months down the road. You should, once you hit the road, get 6 months down and look at it all again and think about, did I really need that? Am I really going to use it? Because that's not what I've been doing so far.
Yeah, Kay worries about her husband worries about her getting rid. I mean, Kerensa could fit a lot more shoes if I wasn't there. So,
yeah.
but we have these contracts we signed that said we can't throw each other out in the middle of the highway, so I guess we won't.
The bottom line is, starting early and starting now is going to help you on this process. The earlier, the better. That just gives you more time to really go through everything that you have and to make thoughtful decisions. Although sometimes maybe not having too much thought and just saying, get rid of it all, can work to our advantage.
It seems like there's two kinds of RVers. There's the RVers that have a year or two to figure it out, like we did, and then we take our time and we research. And then you have the RVers who are like, I want an RV, and they get an RV and they're gone, and that's it. And we're probably not talking to the second group now. We're probably talking to the first group, because the second group just gone.
Yeah.
But yeah, start early and start easy. This is a difficult process. It will take time. You need to do it. At the end of the day, you've got to get your stuff out of your house if you're not going to have a house anymore or an apartment. And you need to give yourself time to do this right. So
yes. And one of the easiest ways to get started, and you could start this right after we finish here, you can go to a junk drawer and just clear out that drawer, because it's a junk drawer for a reason, right? I mean, there's definitely stuff that you need in there, but maybe not all the ketchup packets, or maybe the ketchup packets, since there's a shortage right now. That is a unusual little hiccup right there. But most of the time, you don't need all the rubber bands that are in there and the paper clips. And then you'll have a clean drawer, and it's just kind of like a relief, and you realize that you can do this. Another room that's good to get started on, we talked about closets before, is a bathroom, because there's definitely things you're going to need to keep in there, but there's definitely a lot of stuff that can go, and you're not emotionally tied to most of it.
I am. That toilet paper was passed down for generations. It was carved
It's a
from Paul.
little
Okay.
disturbing.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a lot easier, because your hairbrushes and things like that just don't usually mean as much as something that might be in your bedroom. Again, extra bedrooms usually don't house as much stuff that is very personal to you, and it can help you get started. And again, you get those wins in, and they snowball, and then you're on your way.
Yes. And remember, RVing is very casual. So all that, the makeup and the hair products and all those things that you did all your life going to work, when you get into RVing, you find people start really paring down and becoming, it's not important. You're having fun, you're doing your life, you're moving around, you're not seeing the same people every day. And when you do see people that you see them more than you do at home. Like, you probably camp next to each other, so you're going to see them all day long, maybe, and you can't keep up appearances forever. At some point, you're just going to be who you are, and everybody's going to be fine with it. So,
Right.
it may take some time to pare that stuff down, but it does help to start paring down everything.
Yeah, really. I mean, it is kind of everything. But just don't let it overwhelm you. You can make it smaller chunks, you can break it off, and you can do it, and you can get through it, and then you'll be able to move into your RV a little lighter and feel good about it, and have the things that you need for your life, and enjoy yourself.
Yeah.
That's what it's all about.
And Teresa made a good point that once she gets rid of something, a few weeks later, she doesn't even miss it. And it's kind of the flip side. If you think about when you buy something, you love it so much and you really want that thing, and you bring it home and it's so important to you for a week or so. And then it's just another thing that's in your house. And then you're off looking for the next thing. It's the exact same when you're getting rid of stuff. It's very important. I need this thing. It's so important. I can't get rid of it. And then once it's gone and you've moved on, it's not such a big deal. So
let's go back through them quickly and just remind everyone what we're talking about. The first thing we talked about was prioritizing. So you want to make sure that you prioritize for your needs, your lifestyle, and what you plan to do. So if you're planning on exploring all the cities and moving around a lot and walking, you want to make sure you have the shoes and everything that will fit you for that, and if you're planning on living the high life and going to fancy parties, that might be different. So again,
where's the fancy RV parties?
Maybe not RV parties, but the fancy parties, or what your needs are for kitchen items, things like that. So you have to prioritize and think about your must-haves.
I think Teresa said it again earlier. I might be wrong, but because you mentioned kitchen. Hold on, I got to find it. It's important. I hope it was Teresa. If it wasn't Teresa, someone can correct me. But have things in your kitchen that serve more than one purpose.
Oh, yes. I was going to say no unitaskers.
Yes.
Is a thing, yes. Yeah, she did. It's right here.
Oh, there it is.
Everything should have multiple functions. I was going to bring that.
And that's your kitchen. That's everything. That's your tools, your kitchen supplies, everything you buy. Hopefully, you can find more than one use for
it. Unless
it's a sailboat, and that's very important.
Right. Or rolling pin for rolling out pie dough, or conking you over the head. So it does have dual purpose, right? So, but yes, it needs to serve multi-purpose or be very important to you. Yeah. The next one is chunk it. Chunk it. Now I'm about to feel like I'm saying chuck it, like Brandon wants to do. But chunk it. Avoid the overwhelm. Break everything down into smaller pieces. Start in a closet. Start in just one room. Don't think about it as your whole house. Don't overwhelm yourself.
Yeah. And then Ohio, only handle it once. So put it in the right pile the first time and get rid of it, but then also go back and double check the pile too,
The keep
because the
pile.
keep pile, because
Don't double check
no, the
get
trash
rid
and
of
the
and
get rid of
trash.
piles, those are done. You made your decision. You got to move on. And then on the same thing is one in, one out. So when you get into the RV and you've got your stuff in there, don't start overloading it, because it's everywhere's new, and it's got new souvenirs and new crafts, new arts, new vintage cookbooks to find. It's real easy to overload that RV real quick.
Yes. And remember to think about your memories versus keepsakes. Do you need that item, or is it really about the memory attached to it? And can you take a photo or have a photo of it, something else that will work?
Mm-hmm. And there's really great apps on the phone for storing photos and getting photos into the cloud. Google Photos works really well. Amazon Prime comes with free photo storage. So there's lots of easy ways now to do that.
And use a storage unit wisely. There's no shame in having it. Just make sure that you're using it to the best advantage for you. If something's replaceable, do you really need to pay to keep it in a storage unit?
Yeah. And don't use the storage unit just because you got lazy and didn't want to finish downsizing. So you just shoved everything in there, and you're paying some rando, however much a month to keep your junk
to keep
for
your
you.
Beanie Baby collection or something.
That's
It's
important.
I was just randomly thought of something.
Yes. And Teresa's good. We should just have her on next time. But yeah, scan paperwork and put it on the cloud. You really shouldn't be carrying a lot of important papers in your RV with you, except for the things you need. But you don't want to carry like your RV titles and stuff. Put those in safe deposit boxes. If you had an RV fire or an accident and you lose the important papers in your RV, that's no fun. So we would send like the titles for our car and our RV. We'd send that to our family, and they would put it in their safe deposit box with their stuff. So yeah, and there's also really good apps on the phone for scanning things. So you can take pictures of documents, and it'll straighten out the picture, and it'll clear up the image. You don't actually have to own a scanner anymore. So
Yeah.
again, keeping everything very compact and not carrying a scanner, because it's just a one-use item.
And then finally, as we said, start early, start now. Give yourself time to process the whole journey, because it can be emotional and it can be overwhelming. And we don't want you to feel that. We want you to go through it, go like chunk it out, just start with a junk drawer, go easy, and make it to the RV, and then come out and see us at an event.
Yeah. And then talk to everybody else and give all your stuff away to them.
Yes. And just to remind you, if you want to learn more about the process of getting into an RV, we do have RVers Online University. You can find that at RVersOnlineUniversity.com, and you can go through the RV Foundations course, where you're going to learn about operation, safety, and maintenance, learn how to do everything you need to function with your RV. And then if you are looking to go full-time, we have the course Roadmap to Full-Time RVing, which will walk you through the whole thing, walk you through the start and thinking about your journey all the way into camping like a pro.
Yeah, and it's really good to make sure you don't forget things along the way. We go over downsizing a lot more in there, and there's a lot of tips and handouts and things like that that can help you organize your process to go full time. Because when we went full time, 7 years ago, there wasn't a lot out there. Now we have the opposite, where there's so much out there that you could spend your entire life watching all the videos in the world trying to learn, what to do, or, we can just shortcut you there if you want to.
Absolutely. And we're so glad you joined us, and thank you for sticking with us through this issue. The software we're using actually came up and told us halfway through this.
Our engineers are investigating an issue and doing their best to fix it. So
yeah. So we found that out. So thank you for moving over with us to Facebook Live. And in 2 weeks, we're going to have another virtual campfire. So just hop back on Facebook and hang out with us then. And then next month will be another webinar. So we can't wait to see you there. Thanks for joining us, everyone.